Welcome back to Afternoon Express, and I'm on the couch with our amazing co-presenter here, Joanne, who's doing an amazing job, by the way.
Thank you very much. But we're going into a very interesting topic now, which I'm very curious about. I think most people have insufficient information and knowledge on epilepsy, and as a result, people that live with this condition are often discriminated against. Now, epilepsy as a condition is characterized by someone shaking, by them falling down, foaming at the mouth, and losing control of his or her bladder or bowel movements. Now, there is only one type of epilepsy that we're describing there. There are various types, and today we have Adrienne Robinson in the loft, and she's going to be sharing some insight and some knowledge on everything we need to know about this condition. Adrienne, thank you very much for being here and helping to spread the real stories, because there are a lot of myths that actually stand behind epilepsy.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think for me what's so important, I want to start from the ground. What is epilepsy? And how does it come about? What causes it?
Okay, so epilepsy is defined as a neurological condition that is characterized by recurrent seizures due to unusual electrical activity in the brain. So, firstly, when it comes to the causes, there are various causes of epilepsy, but it's important to note that about 66% of cases of epilepsy, the cause is actually unknown. So the underlying cause of that epilepsy is unknown, which is what we call idiopathic epilepsy. Then we have symptomatic epilepsy, when we can identify that underlying cause. So some of the causes involve things like a brain injury, any bleeding on the brain or a brain tumor, even excessive use of drugs and alcohol can lead to epilepsy. Any sort of complications during birth, if a baby doesn't receive enough oxygen during birth, can also possibly lead to someone developing epilepsy.
I just want to have an understanding also, Adrienne. I mean, it's one of these conditions that we don't know much about. Who can get epilepsy, and how many people are affected by this condition?
So epilepsy does not discriminate as a condition. It can really affect anyone, regardless of your age, your gender, your race, where you're from. None of those sort of external factors play a part. It can affect anyone at any time. And in South Africa, it affects 1 in every 100 people. So it is a really high rate in South Africa of people who are living with epilepsy.
My mind is blown.
That is quite an alarming statistic. And we don't know enough about this condition. Like you said, there are various types of it, and you can actually develop it later on in life.
Yeah.
But how do these seizures look like? We've already described that the common that people know straight off is the foaming of the mouth, the falling down, the shaking. But how do different seizures look like?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely the one that most people associate when they think of epilepsy. So firstly, there are 2 main categories when we talk about epilepsy seizures. So we first have the generalized type of seizures, and that is when that electrical activity that I spoke about in the brain is affecting the whole brain. So the whole organ is being affected by that electrical activity, and the person's consciousness will be affected during a generalized seizure. So that's what you called as a tonic-clonic seizure would fall under generalized seizures. Then we have what we call partial seizures, and that's when the electrical activity is localized to one section of the brain. So the person's consciousness isn't always affected, however, it can be. And then if you're having a partial seizure, it can develop into what we call a secondary generalized seizure. So although it started in that one part of the brain, the electrical activity then develops and it continues into a generalized seizure.
I mean, Joanne, I don't know about you, but at school, we've had some instances where people have had epileptic fits, and we kind of don't know what to do. We don't know how to save them. What are the common myths and misconceptions that people have? I know some people say you put something in your mouth, I don't know, like a penny or something, or you hold them, you move them.
Okay, so there's a lot of myths out there. And it's just important to differentiate that a myth is something that hasn't been sort of proven by scientific research, or it's not a scientific fact. So that one about the spoon in the mouth is a very common myth, that someone might swallow their tongue during a seizure. So that is actually virtually impossible for someone to swallow their tongue. So never put anything in a person's mouth, like a spoon or a cloth, anything like that. Then another myth that's quite common is that a person who's having epilepsy or has seizures is maybe there's witchcraft involved or sort of spiritual possession. That is also not true. It is a medical condition. So yeah, we're really always working to break that stigma that people with epilepsy need to be avoided or excluded or anything like that. What's some other myths? Another myth is that people with epilepsy, that their intellect is affected, but that is also not true. People with epilepsy can go on to achieve amazing things. They can learn as anyone else can, attend mainstream schools. So they don't need to be given sort of, placed in a special school immediately or anything like that.
It's a condition that you manage, and if you know how to manage it, if you're equipped, then it's not something that you need to fear. It's something you need to understand. How does one, I mean, if you could just talk through it, if there is somebody having a seizure, how does one, as a bystander, as somebody who's around, how do you aptly assist?
Okay. So firstly, what we always tell our clients is to try and remain calm. I know that you might feel a bit panicked, so just take a deep breath, try and recall these few steps. And these steps that we're going to give you now is really just for the tonic-clonic type of seizure that we mentioned, the generalized seizure. So firstly, you need to try and take note of the time. So if you have a watch on you or a clock, so that you can time the length of the seizure, that is very important.
So you know exactly how long it lasts.
Exactly how long it lasts, yes. Then you're going to try and cushion the person's head. So use whatever you have available, if it's a jacket or a handbag, something to try and support their neck and their head so that it doesn't lead to any further injuries during that seizure. You're also going to just move any sort of furniture that could possibly injure the person during the seizure, rather than trying to move the person, rather move the objects. And then you're going to loosen.
Don't move the person.
Unless they are in danger, like in a busy road or by machinery. Otherwise, rather move what you possibly can. Then to try and loosen any tight clothing that is around their neck. It's to do with opening up their breathing. So any sort of tight buttons or scarf, just open that up so that their airway is free and the person can breathe easily. Then you're going to place the person onto their side into the recovery position. So you start by pulling their leg over, and then the rest of their body will follow. It's important to note that their top arm is sort of out straight and that the top leg is bent, so that it's going to hold them. They're not going to roll back onto their front, Then you just need to stay with the person and reassure them until the seizure has ended. All the while, we are obviously taking track of the time. So if a seizure goes longer than 5 minutes, that is when you need to get emergency services involved. That would be an emergency situation. The only other time you would call the ambulance is if a person is sort of going in and out of seizures. So they're having multiple seizures in a short period of time.
So much to take in all at once, but I just want everyone and the viewers at home to know that timing is important, to not touch the person. In fact, rather move things around them and not the person.
And stay calm.
And stay calm.
And just ensure that they're breathing freely throughout the whole time, and protect their dignity. If they've they lost control of their bladder, cover that up for them.
Adrian, thank you so much for empowering us. I think that's the thing as well. When it comes to managing a condition, it's about understanding it and being able to manage it from there.
Definitely.
Exactly. Engage with us on social media and let us know your thoughts on epilepsy and how it's affected those around you. Tweet us at Afternoon Chat using the hashtag Afternoon Express, or comment on our Facebook page. But after the break, we send me off to Johannesburg, where I celebrated the Day of Love, being Valentine's Day, with South Africa's favorite couple, Usomizi no Mohale. See you after the break.